was the night before Christmas, and all through the house, a creature was stirring, and it killed my spouse. It killed my spouse. I can't believe this is happening. I'm in shock. Let's deflect for a minute. I've never liked Christmas. My mom said I was born to be a scientist because I stopped believing in Santa when I was 4. I've always been skeptical in the absence of hard evidence. Things don't go bump in the night or slide down your chimney to leave you presents. So imagine my shock when I found myself face to kneecaps with a 13-foot tall creature made of ice. Yes, that may look like just a puddle now, but I'm not so sure. Law of conservation of mass. Matter can neither be created nor destroyed. I'm watching you. Quantum entanglement states that 2 subatomic particles can immediately influence one another, even when separated by billions of light years. They remain deeply connected despite their immense distance. I used to find that to be very romantic, but I've seen for the worst how it's more like a horror film, and I just survived one. Where to begin? I guess far before Act 1. Back to the Big Bang of my life. My mom named me Nova after a supernova, because she said she knew before I was even born I was going to be a superstar. Yes, she was corny. She also really liked Oasis. But growing up, I really sort of resented that name. I became really hard on myself, trying to prove her hypothesis right. A hypothesis I quickly decided was founded on a complete lack of evidence. And then she'd annoy me, because she had this innate way of knowing when I was feeling extra dim. And not long after that, I'd find a note somewhere. In my school lunch she packed for me, or in a dresser drawer, that would just read, "Baby, you're a star." It was wishful thinking, but for all my mom's good intent, she didn't know what a supernova actually is. It's not a super big star. It's the explosive, violent death of a massive star. Now that always felt more fitting. And then she died, unexpectedly, right before Christmas, when I was just 15. Suddenly, Nova became even more of a supermassive thing for me to live up to. A psychology professor, Richard Wiseman, theorized that what we're named can turn into self-fulfilling prophecies, influence our paths in life. Perhaps that's all my mum was really hoping for. But the best thing I could think of to close the gap between what she thought of me and what I thought of me was to take the name literally. I became an extremely successful astrophysicist. I've discovered new planetary systems. I was the youngest person to ever have been awarded the Shaw Prize in astronomy. There were even some whispers I was submitted for a Nobel Prize nomination last year. Life was looking pretty stellar. I thought if I achieved enough, if I was perfect enough, I might actually become the star I always was supposed to be. But then last December, a careless mistake ended my career, and I set off the supernova I always was. For the past year, I've slowly collapsed under the weight of my own gravity, and this Christmas brought on the inevitable explosion. Have you heard of the death of time? This isn't exactly my forte, as it's more theoretical in quantum physics, but it's the idea that our universe could run out of usable energy, cause the heat death of everything, and be the end of time as we know it. It's all very speculative, so I joke that the scientists who believe in that one are true cynics. But as it turns out, I've assumed this premise to be true for my own life. The death of my mother, the failure of losing my career. I've never dealt with loss well. What a terribly painful thing a finite end is. I've felt grief is a lot like a black hole. Inescapable, so dense it's crushing. The spaghettification of everything you once loved. So in response to the upcoming anniversary of the worst events of my life, I decided to take up, you guessed it, caroling. But not just caroling, competitive caroling. I'm a nerd, don't be so surprised. My husband got me into it. Singing is really his thing. He's got the most effortlessly angelic voice. I'm decent, but what I lack in skill I made up for in my suffocating need to be the best at everything I do. My first mistake was joining a team different from him. I thought a little competition would be fun, but deep down it's really that I thought another chance to win something might eclipse my self-doubt. I'm not proud to say this, but I took this competition way too far. I made him my enemy. It started with snapping at him for the littlest things, then shutting down and being so cold with him. Erratic pleas for him to drop out. I should have just accepted that he was better than me, but I couldn't lose at something else. I couldn't accept that confirmation that I'm really not special, even at caroling. So I sabotaged him. It was a gorgeous snowy night a few days before the big competition. He fell asleep on the couch in front of the telly watching It's a Wonderful Life. I opened up the window, let in all the cold air, went upstairs and got into bed. He caught a cold and couldn't sing for the caroling competition, just as I hoped. You're probably wondering when the 13-foot ice creature's making its way into all this. Well, that's how it gets even worse. I met this thing early on in the month, right at the height of my yearly grief meltdown, but the creature was small when I met it. It was cute, hiding in my laundry room. I thought I was losing it and entering my mad scientist era. But every time I did something naughty to sabotage my husband, I got noticeably better at singing. The creature fed off my bad behavior, and I fed off of what the creature gave me. I was a moth to a red supergiant. I was blindly driven by an invisible force that I felt was impossible to stop. So blindly that I barely noticed that every time I did something bad for the creature, it grew bigger and stronger. So yesterday, I was at the caroling competition, singing my heart out, a natural Celine Dion, and me and my team won. It was amazing. I felt the exhilarating rush of putting another win under my Kuiper belt. But as quickly as it came, that crippling emptiness crept back in again. I left the after party early. I wouldn't find out until tonight that after I left, the creature slayed every single person from the losing team. My husband's team. Except, of course, my husband. who was homesick because of me. The instant I heard the news, my world went black. I had gone past my event horizon, and suddenly I realized how wrong I had been. But it was too late. The creature came back tonight for him. I tried to protect my husband, but his fate was entangled with the chaos of those initial conditions that I put him in, and I could have never guessed that the exponential growth of my errors would lead to this. My errors, my failures. How easy it was for me to convince myself I had no control over the matter. It wasn't just some gravitational pull the creature had on me. It was just me, in a deterministic system paved by everything I was too afraid to unpack. See, who we are, the things we do, the feelings that drive us are all coming from somewhere, something we lock deep within ourselves. A pain too unbearable to ever face again. So we build these boxes around that pain that serve to protect us. Those boxes might be bad habits, addictions, neuroticism, avoidance. Sometimes they're wrapped especially pretty and they seem like the good things. Intense discipline, people-pleasing, overachieving. And on the surface we think it's just that, nothing more to it. But unwrap the layers, open the box, and you'll find the reason behind that is a little more complex. It serves a purpose you've maybe never consciously thought about. Its walls are protecting something else. And if you keep at it, you'll find the real message at the center of the box. A core belief that drives who you are and why you do what you do. And it might feel like a total collapse when you get there, but it can lead to an explosion of so much growth. It really is a gift. I wish I had known before it got to this point that this was my core belief, so that I could have fully heard that hurt part of myself, to stop covering it up and wrapping it in perfect bows of achievements, to really observe that belief and, like a good scientist, look at what the evidence really points to. Not just what I believe. We know there's iron in our blood, but do you know how significant that is? No, like, truly, do you know how insane that is? Stop for a second and just listen to your own breath. You are now manually breathing, and every breath is carrying oxygen from your lungs to power every cell in your body. And that happens because iron makes a protein called hemoglobin. It's why your blood is red. But that's not the coolest part. That iron in your blood that's keeping you alive came from a collapsing star. And when that star could no longer put out enough energy to fight the weight of its own gravity, it collapsed so fast and so violently that it exploded. That's right, a supernova. And that supernova scattered iron and all of its other contents across the universe. And one day that iron found its way into your body to help you take this very breath. And this one. And this one. And for you to be here exactly as you are required so many conditions, billions of years of the perfect evolution, cell division, the life of some species, the death of others, and then millions of the right set of social circumstances for you to exist. The odds of you is 1 in 10 with 2,685,000 zeros behind it. I'm not kidding. It's astronomically small. It's as cheesy as my mom was, but I was always a star. And I was always special. We all are. And it's actually an easy belief to have, because it's not formed in a wishful thinking kind of way. It's not meant in a metaphorical way. It's in a measurable, provable, scientific kind of way. Special is built in simply for existing against all odds. My mum and my husband matter so much to me, never for what they accomplished, but always for who they were. There was no one else exactly like them on Earth, and there never will be again. Literally. How special a thing to have been beside them in time. Speaking of which, rather than subscribing to the highly debatable death of time as an analogy for life, now I look at the better evidence right in front of me. The death of stars is what we have to thank for every bit of life. We're so afraid of failure and loss, like it's a linear dead end or story, but it's not. The universe is built upon a never-ending cycle. No beginning, no end, nothing is lost. It can neither be created nor destroyed. What was there was always there. And what's here now is the new life it found once it was scattered into uncharted territory. Even grief is the second life of love. Otto. His name was Otto. You know, maybe my mom was off with the whole supernova thing, but there's also such a thing as a regular old nova. It's a brief period of brightness after an explosion from a star. Sometimes when it happens, a star that was too dim to see with the naked eye becomes the brightest object in the sky. It appears as if it's a new star. That's what nova actually means. New. And unlike a supernova, the star from a nova doesn't die, even though the explosion is still violent. Some stars even repeat this cycle. They're called recurrent novas. I like the idea that I'm more like a recurrent nova, continually renewed each time I unwrap another part of me, reborn with every collapse. And in the rare times I'm more like a supernova, if I let go to allow that explosion to reach as far as possible. Even my past mistakes can give birth to something beautiful. But that's a topic for another final girl.